Hi, I'm Michael Clark for The Road Trip, and we're here on an early morning in Haliburton, Ontario to tell you about the 2014 Chevrolet Impala. Now, a lot of people may have thought that the Chevrolet Impala has been asleep for the last few years. Well, you need to be aware of some very important sales numbers, and that has to do with fleet sales. Now, as in the U.S. as in Canada, fleet sales have comprised about 70% of Impala numbers over the last few years, 30% retail. And in fact, most of those retail numbers, well, they're probably the vehicles that used to be fleet cars after they've retired. But Chevrolet wants to change that in a big way, and to do that, they've had to revamp this car from front to back. So what we're going to do today on the road trip is take the first drive in the 2014 Chevrolet Impala. Now we've got the LTs and the LTZs with the 3.6-liter V6. We're going to give you the specs a little bit later. We don't have the 4 cylinders here today, but those are going to be coming soon for Canadian customers in both 2.5-liter normally aspirated and 2.4-liter e-assist. And we're talking mid 5 liters per 100 kilometers on the highway with that happy hybrid powertrain. Now, if you've got thoughts, feelings, or questions about anything Impala, send us an email at honkyourhorn@live.ca and listen to The Road Trip on CJOB every Saturdays from 10 till noon for the latest in car news.
As we talked about, this is a brand new Impala from the ground up, carryover parts, none. It's a pretty exciting product for us because if you look at the design images back when this was just a design concept and then you look at the finished product, they are very, very similar. I mean, this is a sculpted car that's appealing from all different angles. You know, it's got a powerful domed hood, but a very low front end. You know, it's got nice flow all the way down the sides, right wrapping around to the rear end of the car. You know, it's a beautiful car. It's a car that we hope people will aspire to own.
The 10th generation for Impala for 2014 is one of the most significant because, as we know Impala, it has been a front-wheel drive animal for many years. We were wondering if there was a possibility of all-wheel drive coming to this particular platform, but for now, it's going to stay a front driver. According to General Motors Canada, that's where the lion's share of vehicle sales are in respect to a drive, whether it's rear-wheel drive on a Dodge Charger or front-wheel drive on a Ford Taurus. Not many people, apparently, are opting for the all-wheel drive option. Now, the platform is completely new, but new in the sense that it's new for Impala. It's already underpinning cars like the Cadillac XTS, the Buick Regal, and modified forms for vehicles such as the Chevrolet Malibu. Under the hood, we've got a 3.6-liter V6 for the testers here in Toronto today. The 2.5 liters will be coming soon, and that's going to be the engine on the base LS car. But interesting to note that Chevrolet realizes that many people want all of the luxury of the top-line LTZ, but don't necessarily want to opt for the larger engine. So in that respect, the 2.5-liter normally aspirated engine will be available on the top-line LTZ trim. Now let's talk a little bit about design language here, and one of the things you're going to notice on the new Impala is the amount of sculpting, from the power dome style of hood to even the deck lid itself and the haunches on the sides that harken back to the 1966 Impala. Now the wheels are a big story in the fact that we're dealing with much larger standard wheels. Even on the LS, the 18-inch wheel would be the basic one, and you can go all the way up to 20 inches like some of the LTZ testers that we've been driving here today. The headlamp assemblies use a projector halogen on LS and LT, and the LTZ benefits from the HID, high-intensity discharge. There's an impressive story to tell here with the aerodynamic cheating on the new 2014 Impala. And there's numbers that you need to know. For example, 14%. That's the improvement as to the coefficient of drag for the 2014 Impala over the outgoing 2013. Now they do this with a lot of different methods. For example, the exterior mirrors have been wind tunnel sculpted. There's spats ahead of the tires at the front and the rear, the purpose of which is to channel the air around the vehicle, reducing turbulence. The height of the rear deck lid as well as the rear spoiler, it's all designed to get a proper air flow over this vehicle. Now, so far with the 3.6 liter V6 and 6-speed automatic combo that we've been testing today, some of the best averages have been 8.4 liters per 100 kilometers. Now, that's a little bit higher than the natural resources numbers that you'll see of under 7 liters per 100 kilometers. But remember, we're also driving at speeds that are more indicative of what Canadians do drive on the highway. Didn't run across too many people doing 97 kilometers an hour.
Well, I think what we've seen in the marketplace is, one, people buy what looks good. And as we talked about, this car looks fabulous. So that's the first thing. Next they're looking for the comfort factor. Both space-wise and this car, although it's dimensionally very close to the old car as far as length and width and wheelbase, actually has about 2 inches more legroom in the rear and 3 inches more up front. So more comfort for both front and rear passengers and a larger trunk. And then you add things like features such as technologies, where people are using it perhaps as a portable office. So, having connectivity in the car is very important, and this new MyLink system allows them to have that connectivity.
Now let's take a look at the trunk. The one thing I like about the Impala lid is that it is counterbalanced, so it opens up quite easily. The one thing that you should know is that you're not going to get dirty when you close it. As you can see, there is the pull down to keep your fingers from getting smeared with winter grime. It's exceptionally well sealed, but it's also well sealed in the sense that this is one of the first vehicles in practically any class other than the high luxury that continues underneath the parcel shelf. Now, there is points for expansion of sound with the speakers, but other than that, you're not going to be looking at anything within this trunk that's, well, not painted body color. So we appreciate to see this type of fit and finish and adherence to a new level of quality for Impala. There is a cargo net, and underneath the very thick carpeting, you will find a temporary style of spare tire. Now, it's hard to believe I'm in the back of a Chevrolet Impala for a lot of reasons, and it has to do with the amount of room that we're dealing with here. Now, the vehicle has only grown by about an inch in relation to the wheelbase as well as the overall length. But there's been smart sculpting that's been performed inside for both front legroom as well as rear. What I've done here is I've folded down the 40% side of the 60-40 split to show you exactly how flat even a brand new car can actually be made to be. So you've got a very good size pass-through and a very healthy armrest with good sized cup holders with the bladder style of cinchers. Now, the roof height has been sculpted in such a way that even though there seems to have been a slight shrink in the daylight opening, it's still very roomy for taller passengers. The rear headrests can flip down to help with the rearward vision when there's no passengers in place. The front headrests have the ability to slide fore and aft. You can get just the right amount of comfort. Now, the door pockets for the rear doors are ample with the bottle style holders. But the other thing you'll notice on this LT is the use of this synthetic suede material that really starts to make you ask the question as to why you would even think about going to the leather hides. It's quite comfortable and seems to grip you a little bit better in the corners than typical leather. Now, for the road warriors, there's good news for power hookups. You've got a 120 volt AC plug-in, max of 150 watts, but perfect for plugging in the laptop or anything else you need to take care of the road warrior duties. The seat backs have the pockets on the driver as well as the passenger side. When we're talking about the seats, we should point out that the rear outboard positions do have side airbags. In total, there's 10 airbags on the Chevrolet Impala, and that includes knee airbags for the front passenger as well as the driver.
This car will offer the latest generation of MyLink, debuted here in the Chevrolet Impala. I think the biggest feature is this natural voice recognition, where it allows you to basically talk to the car to tell it what you want, whether you want it to, call home. And you can also give it navigation instructions. If I want to go to the office, I'd say, direct me to the office. And as long as you have the office programmed in as a destination, it takes you there. You can pair a Bluetooth device using the voice recognition as well. You just hit the button and say Bluetooth and start your Bluetooth search on your device, and the vehicle will pair. These are things that we didn't allow the driver to do when in motion before, because obviously it was a lot of distraction, head down, hands on the screen, where now you're doing it basically just with your voice.
The Chevrolet MyLink system is the next generation infotainment system that we're introducing in the 2014 Chevrolet Impala, and this is a very exciting and new system. What we've really tried to do is limit the eyes off road time and make it very easy for the customer to use the system. Everyone has a Droid or an iPhone, and they're very used to using gesture recognition and features within these smartphone devices. So what we've tried to do is take all that wonderful technology and implement it into our system. So we've introduced a storage bin in front of the 8-inch touchscreen, which the customer can actually store their devices in. So they're not texting while driving or getting to their media and doing all these crazy things. Their device is stored away, and they can actually use the entire system to access everything that's on that device. So they can actually make phone calls, they can play media off that device. Examples of the features that we're bringing into the system include natural language by voice recognition, which is very important for our customers, which limits the eyes off road time.
Say a command or say help.
I want to listen to music.
Say play followed by a media selection, or say tune followed by a station number.
Play XM51, and allows the customer to actually have conversations with their system, similar to how Siri works, to get to their desired features and functions very quickly. And so we've introduced an 8-inch touchscreen with very conventional hard push buttons, large knobs, and the touchscreen actually has gesture recognition, so it's really similar to how a smartphone device works today, where the customer can actually fling through lists, swipe through lists, or even click and drag certain features. And we're introducing app tray customization, which is very similar to how an iPad or an iPhone works. So the customer can just simply click on an icon and get to their desired feature very quickly, for example, Pandora. With the Chevrolet MyLink, we're actually offering 4 different themes for the customer. So think of it as a background or a wallpaper that's in the system. And there are 4 selectable themes called Main Street, Contemporary, Velocity, and Edge. And the customer can get to those through the settings menu. And once they select their desired theme, it actually changes the entire appearance of the system. Just by the steering wheel control, I can play my media, I can make phone calls, I can go to different destinations. So I can simply say, I want to listen to Mariah Carey, or I want to go to McDonald's, or I want to call home. Call home.
Call home. Is that correct?
Yes. In the MyLink system, you can actually store up to 60 favorites. You can store Pandora stations, songs, albums, artists, genres, destinations, and even your contacts. If you are navigating from Detroit to Denver, Colorado, you can actually go within the weather menu that's located in the homepage, and it'll give you the weather during your route, so within all the cities that you'll be going through.
Well, it's one thing to have keyless entry. It's another thing to have push-button start, as does this particular LT trim. But it's completely something else to find on the door handles things that you're not expecting. Now, let me explain exactly what I mean. On the front doors, we expect to find the easy release tabs. Simply touch the tab. As long as the key is within proximity, you're able to get in. But where we don't expect to see them is on the passenger doors. And we have to say, severe kudos to Chevrolet for realizing that you need to have these points on all doors. Now there's also a touchpad release for the trunk lid for easy access.
The previous generation Impala, although was successful in the retail market, we did a fair bit of fleet business. You know, our percentages were roughly about 70% fleet in that car. Whereas we are going to go the other way with this car. You know, we have very good residual values, so the leasing customer is going to get excellent lease payments. So we are going to do about 70% retail and only about 30% fleet. Because we know this car will attract the corporate customer who's perhaps buying a fleet of salesman's cars for or salesperson's cars for them to drive around. Great car. You know, we don't want to turn that business away, but we know that there will be a big retail appeal for this vehicle.
In the forward cabin of the 2014 Impala, you're going to find a familiar design cue from Chevrolet, and that's the dual cockpit array for the front dash. It's been laid out in such a way that it incorporates the abilities for two-toning, as we've seen on many Chevrolets over the years, as well as fine stitchwork. This is definitely lending, along with the soft touch materials, to a level of quality that we simply haven't expected to find in the likes of a Chevrolet Impala. As we move through the rest of the interior, you're going to notice good-sized pockets for the front doors. The HVAC controls on this particular LT give us dual zone for the driver and the front passenger, and you can sync that temperature together easily. Customers today are demanding an impressive safety suite from a wide range of vehicles. So we expect to have things like forward collision warning, as well as blind spot detection and rear cross path detection. Well, all of those things are available on the Impala for 2014. With the adaptive cruise control, you have the abilities to actually have the vehicle stop itself in traffic and then accelerate as traffic moves forward. There's even the abilities for the braking system to intervene in the respect of a collision that is imminent and possibly avoid it completely or definitely decrease the impact that could occur. You know, sometimes you don't have a lot of time, but that doesn't mean you can't do a good job. And that's why I'm with you today in the comfy confines of the Ford Focus ST. Now, this Tangerine Scream Bomber is definitely one of the hottest pocket rockets out there. $29,999 gets you into the front door on MSRP. Now, when it comes to the actual car, we tend to be a little static and a little bit of B-roll when it comes to displaying what these vehicles can actually do. But I thought the best thing for me to do would be to take you for a ride. And that's what we're doing today. Now, I'm going to point out something that you're going to notice right away. And as much as I love talking to you, the viewer, when I'm driving, I'm not looking at you. So don't take it personally. Okay, folks, it's time for my quickie review, and when it comes to the Ford Focus ST, it's pretty quick. Just got to make sure you don't bounce it off the rev limiter. And by fourth gear, well, you're up at legal speed, and we're not taking you any faster than that in the Ford Focus ST. But boy, could you, especially under controlled track conditions. Now, let's give you a little bit of history on the hot Focuses, because we've never really had them in North America, and it's really exciting to get them here, because the Ford Focus ST is Ford's first global performance car. So this is the vehicle that's going to be just as hot in Los Angeles as it will in Sussex, England. Now, what I like about the setup in here is that it is made for driving. You've got a proper thumb locator style of steering wheel, and even with the Ford Focus controls that are definitely easy to use, such as the 5-way switches on the left and right hand side of the wheel, it's still sporting fun. Should probably put it in 5th gear. Now, I'm glad you can't smell that smell, because I had a little bit of fun with the clutch action here, but I have to tell you, the clutch action is perfect. There is definitely enough weight with this system, and the 6-speed manual, a slick shift all the way around. Now, the one thing that I did want to point out is that I've got a little bit of a concern with how the Ford Focus dash is set up. I keep turning the headlights on and off as I exit the vehicle with my left knee. So that might be something that they want to change up on the next generation. Now, gauges, you might expect the boy racer style of A-pillar setup, but that's getting a little too 2002. So what they've done is they put an additional topper on the dash. So you've got your turbo boost gauge as well as your oil pressure and oil temperature, because considering how much you might be pushing this vehicle on track day, you want to make sure that you're not going to be voiding the warranty anytime soon. Now, as much as they're talking about some pretty impressive economy numbers for the Ford Focus ST, let's remember that you're going to be getting those numbers under very polite driving conditions. Our average so far in a combined city and urban cycle, with a little bit of pushing of the foot, is sitting at about 13.4 liters per 100 kilometers, and now sitting at 219 kilometers for the day on this freshly minted car. Well, knowing that I picked it up with about 46 kilometers, I'm already at half a tank. So it'll be thirsty, but you'll definitely know where all that fun went. As for the rest of the Focus interior, got to tell you, the Recaros hug you like a long-lost girlfriend. And the way that they're set up for the driver is that you've also got power actuation, so they're not as weekend racer as you might think them to be. The Tangerine Scream, well, it's a little bit out there when it comes to the hue. You'll definitely get noticed, but you can get a little bit more pedestrian in the colors. And that's why the ST is one of my favorites, because if you get it in something like a typical black, it's the type of car that can blend into the background. This is truly a sleeper. Been so long since we really had a vehicle that we could call a sleeper. And tied in with all the know-how that Ford is doing with the 2-liter EcoBoost, it's going to be an engine that will only see additional tuning. In fact, Shelby has got on board recently, and they brought out their version, which doesn't have any hot performance upgrades yet for the engine, but it's all about suspension. Now, what I like about the lowered suspension on the Focus ST is that it's lowered in the sense that it's not going to be an issue with speed bumps. It definitely has the right stance, definitely a good combination of tire and rubber, and good disc brake action. Now, what I think they could be thinking about for the future on this car, well, I would like there to see a Ford racing type of a dollop of performance that could be added to the vehicle, and that could be so many different things, from different intakes to different turbochargers. Who knows which way they could go with the car. But so far, I'd have to say that for bang for the buck, you've got a lot of other cars that are certainly trying to get at the Focus. You think of cars like GTI. But there's also the big question is, for $29,999, what can you really get that gives you this type of fun and 5-door practicality? So we'd have to say it's definitely a road trip pick. And I gotta tell you, this school bus yellow / Tangerine Scream, well, it's kind of growing on me.
Chevrolet believes that the Impala is going to do some pretty big things. Most importantly, shift around the numbers that we normally expect to see. Imagine a world where the Chevrolet Impala is getting 70% retail business and 30% for the fleet. Now, the Impala that we know today, the 2013, it will still continue for a little while longer at the Oshawa assembly plant. But it's not even going to be destined for the Canadian market after the 2013 model year ends. It will appear as a special fleet unit for U.S. sales called the Chevrolet Impala Limited, so we won't see it in Canada. Now, the engine choices are interesting, and we hope that the 2.5-liter normally aspirated 4 is going to be enough to push around the Impala the way that people expect to push around an Impala. The interesting thing here is that police versions will not be available. It's a market that Chevrolet's not going after with Impala. They're going to keep with the Chevrolet Caprice police pursuit vehicle for those duties. Does it mean that we're not going to ever see an Impala in a fleet role? Perhaps, but that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. When we take a look at the styling that has been sculpted on this new car, I don't think we'd ever want to lower it to those standards. There's definitely a Cadillac feel that's going on with much of the fit and finish, as well as the technology such as MyLink. For my money, I would say that this car has created a new segment for Chevrolet, because this is certainly not the Impala that you would consider from the rental lot or your grandparents' driveway. It's done something with chrome without making it homely. It's done something with sculpting without making it look like it was an afterthought. Now, if you've got thoughts, feelings, or questions about anything automotive, including the 2014 Chevrolet Impala, send us an email at honkyourhorn@live.ca. And listen to The Road Trip every Saturday from 10 till noon for the latest in-car news. I'm Michael Clark. Keep the shiny side up and the rubber side down.